Food Insecurity Over Breaks and Social Emotional Learning with the Design Thinking Process, presented by Brittany Hosmer, the Scholar Practitioner. Throughout the fall semester in 2024, the Scholar Practitioner utilized the design thinking process to create a solution for a need regarding food insecurity in the Lincoln County R3 School District. Throughout this presentation, the Scholar Practitioner will outline the 5 steps to the design thinking process and consider how each step work together to create a solution to the wicked problem of an aspect of food insecurity. The process began with the Scholar Practitioner creating a literature review in order to gain basic knowledge regarding food insecurity, and to then shape the wicked problem into a problem that the Scholar Practitioner would focus on throughout the unit. The Scholar Practitioner quickly learned that food insecurity is currently an issue with citizens across the United States, the biggest age group impacted being those in their mid-30s to early 60s, the working-age middle adults, as noted by author Michael F. Royer, 2024, which is the age group of many of the parents of students at Troy Middle School in Lincoln County R3. The Scholar Practitioner began to look into how food insecurity impacted middle school students, knowing that information, and quickly discovered that mental health is severely impacted in the case of food insecurity or security. Current literature showcases a connection between suicidal rates and food insecurity, specifically seen when looking into the works of Brinkman, Garnett, Koldinsky, Wang, and Pope, 2021, and Brown, Siegelman, Slila, Barnage, Krupski, Desmisi, and Lisi, 2022. The Scholar Practitioner began to consider the saying Maslow before Bloom and connected this to food insecurity. There is certainly a connection between the pressure students feel if their families are facing food insecurity, thus a need to find out how to combat this pressure. According to authors Broughton and Caddy, 2020, their research shows that in 2017, nationally, 12% of American households were food insecure. In an article written in 2020, authors of University Student Food Insecurity and Academic Performance collected data used from a survey given in 2017. The article ties together exactly what the title states: food insecurity and how students perform academically. Though this is from a university standpoint, similar principles can be applied to the middle school setting. This article ties in students' grade point averages, GPA, into the data collection piece, giving a real vision of what the impact of food insecurity is. The article noted food-secure students are 3 times more likely to be in the top 10% of the GPA ranking. The authors also point out if students are food insecure, they are twice as likely to be in the lowest 10% of GPA findings as opposed to those who would be considered food secure. This begs the question, what is society doing to create equitable environments for our students? The empathy stage of the design thinking process is the stage in which the Scholar Practitioner must consider the who behind the problem and solution. The Scholar Practitioner must consider how the user might feel with zero biases and must also research the problem through various forums, such as interviews or observations, both completed by the Scholar Practitioner in this case. Throughout the empathy stage, the Scholar Practitioner truly immerses themselves with the qualitative and quantitative data and is able to understand where the user is coming from. Professor Hastings, 2018, in her YouTube videos clearly states during this stage the Scholar Practitioner will, quote, really get to know who we are designing for, end quote. The problem of food insecurity is rampant throughout the United States. To help curb the issue, the Scholar Practitioner found middle school students need to have access to food throughout the year, including summer, spring breaks, and winter breaks. Being able to access food will make these students feel safe and meet basic needs to help achieve their educational goals, both academically and behaviorally. The problem that the Scholar Practitioner is trying to solve is the problem of the user, Troy Middle School students. Middle school students need to have access to food throughout the year. Being able to access food will make them feel safe and meet their basic needs to help them achieve their educational goals, both academically and behaviorally, impacting their overall mental health. Once the user and problem were established, the scholar practitioner began the interview process to learn more about the problem. The scholar practitioner introduced and explained what she planned on doing to the interviewee in 2 ways. The first was an introduction during an interview in person as to be narrated for the audience. Good morning, afternoon. Thank you so much for taking time to answer my questions throughout the interview process. As you know, my name is Brittany Hosmer and I am a Lindenwood doctoral student. Currently, our cohort is learning about the design thinking process and are doing a mini project regarding food insecurity. I am choosing to focus on the way food insecurity ties to the student learning and mental health. I appreciate your time. Please answer the following questions to the best of your abilities, and if you are uncomfortable answering any of the questions, please feel free to pass on the questions. The scholar practitioner also had an introduction for her email interviews as well. Good morning, afternoon. My name is Brittany Hosmer, and I am currently a doctoral student at Lindenwood University, currently working on a paper centered around the idea of food insecurity in the United States, with a focus on how food insecurity ties to student learning and mental health, as both concepts go hand in hand. With a focus on how food insecurity ties to student learning and mental health, as both concepts go hand in hand. I was wondering if you would be a part of supporting my research and assist in answering a few questions, as you have experience in the field of education and knowledge of how differing environments support or are a detriment to student mental health. I would appreciate your participation as a part of my project. I have attached times to schedule an interview through Google Calendar. Please select a time that works best for you. Thank you for your time and consideration, Brittany Hosmer. In order to establish rapport with the user, the scholar practitioner must establish trust. Being vulnerable with those in an interview process is important. The scholar practitioner took time to reflect back to cognitive coaching practices when it comes to building rapport. The scholar practitioner noted that it is critical to take time to listen to an interviewee and not share too much personal information. Being an active listener is key. Paraphrasing is a large part of the active listening process, and getting a sign-off from the interviewee to ensure the essence of what they are saying is critical. The scholar practitioner made note to paraphrase after almost every question. Clarification is also a tool used to make sure that information is being understood and processed correctly. Body language is important while interviewing. One way to establish rapport is to mimic the body language being used. Look at hand placement of the interviewee, leg placement, and attempt to mirror that naturally. Eye contact is a part of this as well. Showing value to the interviewee is important. Throughout the interview process, the scholar practitioner wrote plural questions and utilized the power of might. Having more open-ended questions and following up with asking why or for examples opens the conversation for a more reflective approach. A list of the questions asked during the interview. Introduction. Could you please state your name? What is your current role, job? Could you please describe your role responsibilities? How many years have you been in said role? Was there someone during your school years that you remember and made a difference in your life? Who and why? Establishing the meaning of food insecurity. Food insecurity is a current issue throughout the United States. What do you know regarding food insecurity? Provide clarification if needed regarding the definition of food insecurity. Why might food insecurity be important to you? Impact on communities. If students are not having basic needs met, how might this influence their education? Provide an example. What are connections between mental health and food insecurity you might have observed? In your professional opinion, why might that connection exist? How might you suppose parents feel sending their children to school when food is a scarcity at home? How could the feeling mentioned influence parent feeling regarding out-of-school suspension? Solutions. In the Lincoln County R3 school district, what programs are provided to combat the global issue? Why not do you feel that these programs are successful? Do you feel that Lincoln County R3 could implement new programs to benefit our families? What might these look like? How might we support parents specifically? If you had a magic wand and could make anything happen regarding food insecurity, What might the issue look like? Why and or how? Closing. After our time together today, what questions might you have? Take time to answer the participants' questions. Is there anything else you would like to add to the conversation? The scholar practitioner then ended the interview in the following manner. In-person script. Thank you for that answer. At this time, this concludes the interview. I would like to give you the opportunity to state additional comments or ask me any questions you might have. Again, I truly appreciate your time today and your heart for students. I look forward to continuing my research and am happy to share any information I learn with you, as well as sending you my final project if you are interested in reviewing the information. Thank you. Follow-up email. Good evening. I wanted to reach out and thank you once again for taking the time to be a part of the Food Insecurity and Learning Project. You have given me valuable information and details regarding the issue of food insecurity in the Lincoln County R3 School District and truly opened my eyes as you have brought the way our community deals with this issue to light. Your contribution to my work is greatly appreciated and truly valued. Thank you for your time, Brittany Hosmer. The scholar practitioner observed 2 individuals during the 6th grade lunch shift, which is a 22-minute lunch shift at the Troy Middle School in Lincoln County R3 School District. During lunch, a student ran up to a lunch lady with excitement on her face. She exclaimed that she remembered her lunch pen. Immediately, the lunch lady responded with joy and excitement that matched the student's. The lunch lady told the student how proud she was of her, and that student beamed before running off. The scholar practitioner was informed that this student has been struggling with remembering her lunch pen since the beginning of the school year, as she is new to the district, and they have been working on learning the pen together daily. As the lunch progressed, the scholar practitioner stood next to the nacho line. In this line, a second lunch lady at the nacho bar was pleasant and engaging with each student on a personal level, building trusting relationships with the students she engaged with. She had a smile on her face throughout the process of gathering a container of chips, putting the students' choice of chicken, beef, rice, beans, and or cheese on the nachos. The lunch lady posed questions or made the following comments to the students as they came through her line. How is your brother, hun? Is he liking the freshman center? You just want meat and cheese, right, sweetheart? Tell your dog I said hi, he's so cute. Thank you for being polite. This lunch shift group is so sweet. Students were engaged and were extremely polite, practicing manners and saying please and thank you. Each student said these words to her with the exception of one student. Her comment to the scholar practitioner after regarding that student was that she is, quote, working on that one, he will get there, end quote. Her line was over in about 15 minutes and she served approximately 40 students. These students were being served not only food, but love by each person they came in contact with throughout the food process. The scholar practitioner noted additional roles she would like to observe, which included the buddy bag coordinator, the Spark Wheel representative, which is a mentorship program that works with LCR3. She also provides resources to those in need and is able to buy student lunches when they meet a goal. She also buys families groceries when in need. The scholar practitioner also noted 6 processes she would like to observe. National Honor Society packing buddy bags, passing out of buddy bags to students, specifically noting how the students react to the food they are getting for the weekend. A breakfast lunch shift, noting how many students receive breakfast and compare it to the lunch shift numbers. An elementary lunch shift, specifically 5th grade. Troy Middle School shares a cafeteria with an elementary school. However, that elementary school has fewer students with free and reduced lunch. They feed into the other middle schools in the district. 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade lunch shift with a focus on the students. The scholar practitioner would like to see numbers as to which grades have greater free and reduced lunch and how that plays into the number of students receiving lunches. And finally, the Bread for Life Food Pantry, the last Wednesday of the month, located in Troy, Missouri. The defined stage of the design thinking process is the stage in which the scholar practitioner must consider the what behind the problem and solution. Additionally, the scholar practitioner would also ask who, why, where, when, and how in consideration of the problem. Throughout this research project, the scholar practitioner is searching for solutions to the wicked problem of food insecurity. The scholar practitioner has focused on middle school students and the impact food insecurity has on their social emotional health. The scholar practitioner felt, after researching, the problem still exists because school is only covering 2 out of 3 meals a day and typically does not have support for students during breaks or weekends. On a wider scale, if society knows that food insecurity is tied to students' mental health, behaviors, and academics, what is being done to solve the problem? It was noted by Brinkman, Garnett, Koldensky, and Wang, 2024. Students who experienced food insecurity most of the time/always were at least 4 times as likely to have suicidal thoughts and nearly 5 times more likely to experience hopelessness than students who were rarely/never food insecure. School districts across the country are looking into various social emotional learning curriculums to combat the issues students are facing, yet food insecurity should be an area to be addressed in combating mental health as well. Addressing this organizational change will allow families to benefit emotionally as well as physically. As mentioned above, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is important for any person to have addressed, not just students. Food insecurity is a topic that is felt nationwide currently and at all ages. As stated earlier, the most common age of those struggling with food insecurity is typically mid-30s to early 60s. Knowing this information, that this is the age of the majority of our students' parents or guardians, which are facing stress regarding their basic needs, it is undoubtedly felt by students as well. An empathy map was utilized by the scholar practitioner in order to slow down and consider how those observed might say, do, think, or feel. The scholar practitioner completed her empathy map based on the observation of the 6th grade lunchroom previously described. The users are middle school students, so being able to analyze how their lunchroom interactions might look at school is helpful in consideration of a future prototype. An affinity map is similar to a brainstorming section. The scholar practitioner chose to utilize a rose, bud, and thorn template to complete and create ideas regarding to the topic, thus defining the problem further. Within the project, there are many buds, programs that exist that have yet to bloom into a rose, but a few thorns with regards to how to best inform the community and parents regarding food programs within the district. The ideate stage of the design thinking process is the stage in which the purpose of ideating is for the scholar practitioner to brainstorm to create potential solutions to the wicked problem. Throughout this process, there are different approaches to brainstorming, but the key is to take the feedback and learn from participants in brainstorming sessions. Before the brainstorming, the scholar practitioner chose a question to ideate. The question was, how might the Lincoln County R3 school district meet food insecurity needs of students over breaks? There were 8 participants invited virtually to participate in the brainstorming session. All of these participants were affiliated with Lincoln County R3 school district students population. The scholar practitioner utilized a program called Figma. The website is extremely easy to use and has participants post a sticky note with their thought or idea. The activity was prefaced by the scholar practitioner to the participants with instructions of how to utilize the technology. Participants were asked to reach out with any questions prior to the brainstorming session. During the brainstorming session, the scholar practitioner had participants participate in a 15 to 30 minute brainstorming session. Since the session was virtually run, participants could take part depending upon their availability. The scholar practitioner noted that creative energy was evident since this was a new form of technology for each participant, and this was a chance for the participants to engage in a new way. Participants are able to pick the color of their sticky note, and the scholar practitioner noticed that they each seemed to pick a different color depending upon the topic. The session was influenced by the setting being virtual. In future brainstorming sessions, the scholar practitioner will utilize an in-person setting as opposed to a virtual setting and potentially plans on either utilizing freeform through Apple in the future. Following the brainstorming session, the scholar practitioner collected 13 novel ideas from this session and 5 groups emerged: communication, deliveries, funding, utilizing district programs, and reflection. From these 5 ideas, the scholar practitioner determined to focus on the communication piece and create parent surveys. Since there is a district committee that is currently reviewing the practices of buddy bags, this would be a perfect opportunity to create a helpful tool that they can utilize to collect that data. The scholar practitioner received valuable feedback. However, the focus is always better in person to have discussions. It can be easier to bounce ideas off of each other. Ideas were evaluated based upon need, the amount of times the idea was brought up, and if there was a solution already in place for the idea. For example, an idea regarding where to have a centralized location for food pickup was discarded. The idea was able to be discarded because the participants realized that if transportation to the location was available, the community had local food banks. The focus instead should be on the students whose families are unable to access the food banks due to transportation or work issues. From there, the scholar practitioner saw a need for how to convey the information regarding food deliveries during breaks, and the discussion ensued. The scholar practitioner was met with ideas such as podcast, flyers, surveys, parent square posts, and YouTube videos. Exploring the ideas brought up throughout the ideation process was done largely through discussion. Podcasting and YouTube videos were grouped together. Lincoln County R3 Superintendent currently has a YouTube video which comes out monthly and gives regular updates and shares information regarding the school district. Adding information regarding a summer buddy bag program could be implemented. However, after discussion, a realization showed the majority of the families who need information may not have internet access or take the time to watch the video. Many principals in the district put together a principals podcast. As previously mentioned, the target audience may not take advantage of this form of media, therefore throwing both of those ideas aside. Parent Square is an online platform allowing families to sign up to receive emails, text messages, and has an app which allows families to communicate directly with school staff and allows school staff to send out information. The majority of families in the district utilize Parent Square, making this platform the top runner for receiving and promoting information. The platform was deemed important. Ultimately, the content took priority in the discussion. A decision to combine a parent survey to assess the needs through an informational flyer sharing the information through Parent Square was decided upon. Though, as previously mentioned, there were ideas that showed promise, such as the YouTube video and the podcast, the team felt that this informational flyer will be the best in sharing out information. The scholar practitioner felt that the ideation stage of the design thinking process was extremely helpful. The method that she felt was the best in usage of this project was the different forms of brainstorming. This gave the scholar practitioner a chance to test and utilize different forms of brainstorming in order to start thinking about the prototype that would be constructed in the next slide. The prototype stage of the design thinking process is the stage in which the scholar practitioner must design an idea to test or carry out to help solve a wicked problem. The prototype will begin as a low-fidelity prototype or rough draft and will grow and change into a high-fidelity prototype as feedback is given. The purpose of having a prototype start as a low-fidelity prototype is to keep the attachment to the prototype relatively low. If the scholar practitioner spends too much time and effort on a prototype, it can be difficult to consider another option. A low-fidelity prototype will receive feedback and revise, which is critical to the prototyping process. For the Lindenwood final project for the Principles of Design Thinking course, the scholar practitioner has created a prototype regarding food insecurity. The scholar practitioner met with a colleague to explain the prototype and received valuable feedback. She learned the following. One of the main issues the scholar practitioner found within their school district regarding food insecurity is the issues of families receiving food over breaks, specifically if families do not have transportation to access local food banks. The surrounding community has multiple food providers. However, without transportation, many families are unable to access these free foods. Upon discussion with many participants, the scholar practitioner decided upon a prototype to collect information from families that may want to utilize a service that provides them food over breaks delivered to their door. Before they are able to get to this solution, however, a prototype to spread the word and get food out is the first step. The prototype is a two-part prototype, the first being a low-fidelity flyer to get the families to a survey. The key for both of these documents is simplicity. The key is to make sure that all families have access to information. The flyer reads, "Food for breaks, scan for more information," and has a QR code that links to a simple survey that will be the first step in collecting data for the schools. The QR code then leads families to a survey that begins with asking the family's email, the student's first name, last name, leads to a question that reads, "Does your student utilize free and reduced lunch? If you'd like more information, please reach out to your student's school." The survey then asks if transportation is available for families to pick up food. If they say yes, the survey ends. If the family responds with no, then the survey leads to a question that states, "Would you be interested in delivery if you do not have transportation?" The survey then ends. The key to the survey is simplicity. The testing stage of the design thinking process is the stage in which the scholar practitioner will put the prototype to the test. Throughout this stage, data will be collected and the prototype may be once again revised to seek a solution. The feedback the scholar practitioner received from her cohort was largely positive, yet more about the delivery process and not so much regarding the prototype itself. The scholar practitioner learned that when asking for feedback, she needs to be specific in what feedback she is asking for. Additionally, the scholar practitioner learned that prototypes really could be much shorter and simpler than she initially thought. As the scholar practitioner viewed examples of prototypes shown throughout the course, it was helpful to see that they truly are an extension of brainstorming. The scholar practitioner has created a null hypothesis statement which states, "There is a difference between students who participate in the DESA scores between students who receive buddy bags over breaks and those who do not. Consent will need to be gained to gather data from the Lincoln County R3 school district and parents. For the solution, parents will be surveyed and the consent form will be included with the Google Form parent survey. The consent form will outline the purpose of the research and data collection and a note stating this is an anonymous survey with minimal risk. This will be a simple checkbox in which the parent will acknowledge the anonymous usage of their survey results. The data to be collected to support the null hypothesis will be found through the DeVroe Student Strengths Assessment, or DESA, from Aperture Education. This assessment assesses social emotional competencies found in students. The DESA will address the null hypothesis of there is a difference between students who participate in the DESA scores, between students who receive buddy bags over breaks, and those who do not. The DESA survey is given at the beginning of the school year and will be given as a mid-year check-in. Data will be collected before and after the implementation of the prototype of the parent survey, assuring families will receive food who do not have the ability to make it to a food bank over breaks. The results will show an increase in student competencies. The data informs the scholar practitioner and the school if delivery is necessary. Final thoughts. Throughout the EDA 78200 Principles of Design Thinking course, the scholar practitioner has learned quite a bit about how the design thinking process works. The main key components that the scholar practitioner will be taking with them are always be revising, open to feedback, and keep the user at the forefront of everything that the researcher does. To elaborate, throughout the prototype process, the scholar practitioner has several ideas of a prototype and continued revising the prototype all the way into the testing phase. The scholar practitioner will also remain open to feedback given by those within the Lindenwood cohort as well as professors. Feedback is often most easily accessed if questions are asked. Finally, the third key concept is to keep the user at the forefront of everything the scholar practitioner does. Though this was learned throughout the empathy stage, the scholar practitioner found this to be the most important part. If the user is the focus on the project and the scholar practitioner can empathize with the user, the project has more meaning. References used throughout the project are as follows. Thank you for your time and consideration of this project.